Welcome back to Gibbo MMA. We are previewing UFC Qatar, and we're going to go over some news, some ranking updates. Dana White's told some untold stories of Francis Ngannou, pulling him by the shirt, give me bonus. And we are recording on a Wednesday. We're only 3 days removed from UFC 322. Islam Anu defeats Jack Della Maddalena and is now ranked number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world. But UFC Qatar headlined by Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan Hooker, Bilal Muhammad versus Ian Gary Co-Main. And I gotta say, I think I'm starting to get a bit of MMA fatigue. What I mean by that is, I think we should be getting a week off after a UFC pay-per-view event, because that's when we get a lot of movement in the rankings, new champions and we're still digesting from UFC 322 MSG. And now we're moving straight on to UFC Qatar, and it's a great card. I like the main and co-main event, but I think we're moving too far forward. You don't want to be looking in the rearview mirror all the time and looking back on things, but I think digesting and reflecting on events is important, and we're still doing that with UFC 322. There's still a lot to unravel. I mean, we still haven't even heard from JDM himself. He didn't get on the mic post-fight. He hasn't come out with anything other than his coach putting out a statement. Still recovering from that loss as a fan. All respect to Islam, and it's still annoying. 19 minutes of control time and landed 7 significant strikes. But just like Hamzat, moving up versus a bigger guy, just get the win. That's all that matters. No matter how you get it, but just get the win. And Hamzat said his corner was telling him to keep doing what he was doing. Hamzat wanted to strike himself, but don't take any risks. Just get the win by all means. And that's why I give a lot of respect to Conor McGregor when he lost to Nate Diaz, because we're talking about JDM. Still haven't heard anything. He wasn't brutally knocked out. All he wore was just a few calf kicks and got just controlled. So I thought we would have heard something by now. And that's why I give respect to Conor for the amount of shit he talked to the first Nate Diaz fight. And instantly came out to the media that night, fronted up, took it on the chin, took accountability. And, that's why I do have a lot of respect for McGregor. With all the shit he talks, he still, loses humbly and fronts up. So let me know your thoughts, if you would have liked to heard by JDM by now. Hope he's doing okay. But UFC Qatar, I'm trying to get hyped for this. It's a great couple of fights on here, but just still a lot to still process and digest from the weekend. And I got to say, these past few runs of pay-per-views, 3 out of the last 4 have been pretty sort of disappointing, not too entertaining. If it wasn't for Alex Pereira, the last 4 main event pay-per-views specifically have been pretty dour. If we run through it, bro, this magnet on this thing is just a swivel, bit of lean. All right. Because if we run through the past 4 pay-per-views we've had, we start at UFC 319. We get DDP versus Hamzat. That main event was, not the most entertaining. 21 minutes of control time by Hamzat. Pretty tough to get through that main event. A lot of complaining about that. I respected that more from Hamzat, because at least, he was getting them into crucifixes, putting more damage on. You could see it on DDP's face. Whereas the JDM fight, no damage on the ground whatsoever. And then the next one, UFC 320, Pereira vs. Ankalaev. Now that was an entertaining main event. big knockout win for Pereira. That was entertaining. And there was, a lot of clicks and views and, a lot of engagement from that main event was insane because of the finish. And then the next pay-per-view, Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane ends in a no contest. Just fucking disappointing end to a main event on a pay-per-view. And then UFC 322, again, the main event, not entertaining. It's a great performance, but the eye test, if we go by the eye test, a casual fan, not an entertaining fight. We won't be talking about how great that fight was, how entertaining it was. Again, respect for the performance, absolutely dominant, but from the eye test, from the casual fan's perspective, hard-earned money spent on the pay-per-view for this main event, and it was saved by the earlier knockouts on the card. But from the fans that paid all that money in MSG, I heard people walking out halfway through the main event. Last 3 out of the last 4 pay-per-view main events haven't been the greatest and entertaining. But it is a sport, and by the rules, they won, and you can't hate on it too much per the rule sets. But as a fan, you want to see Alex Pereira type shit, Ilia Topuria type shit. That's why they, get the praise and, fan base behind them, because they're putting on entertaining performances. But let me know what you think, guys. Let me know if you got that MMA fatigue. A bit. We've got 3 events to go. So we got this one, then we got Dvalishvili, and then Royval versus Cap to end the year. So 3 more to go, guys, but definitely experiencing some MMA fatigue, especially when it's straight again. We got another event this weekend after we had huge, sort of headlines, a lot of movement in the rankings from this event, a lot to, talk about, things to settle, but we're instantly marching forward and got to put that behind us, because we got Arman Tsarukyan ranked number 1 versus Dan Hooker ranked number 6. And then another big welterweight ranked matchup with Bilal number 2 and Ian Gary number 7. If Gary wins, he might go on to get a title shot. We'll see. We'll get into it. But yeah, UFC Qatar. Let's get into this main event. Arman Tsarukyan, the heavy favorite, $1.20. Dan Hooker, $4.50. The last time Arman Tsarukyan fought was UFC 300 against Charles Oliveira, April of last year. So whatever that is, 17 odd months he has been out. And he won that by a split decision against Charles Oliveira. He was booked against Islam in January at the start of the year. Had to pull out during the weight cut with his back issues. So unfortunate, he ended up being the backup fighter and weighed in for the Topuria Charles fight. So now he's getting Dan Hooker, who hasn't fought in over a year himself. August of last year, it was against Mateusz Gamrot, August of last year, where he won a split decision, fight of the night, crazy fight. And so these guys have been pretty inactive. But Dan Hooker, he was booked against Justin Gaethje March this year and had to pull out due to a broken hand, I believe it was, had to get surgery. I remember my heart sunk when I saw that news. That was the most violent matchup, one of the most violent what-ifs fights of all time. Justin the Highlight Gaethje versus Dan Hooker. And I remember being in my bedroom, soon to go to bed, just, have a quick flick through the socials, and then boom, Dan Hooker out. And I remember posting a meme. I believe this was the first time I ever went sort of like viral with the meme, getting like 100K views or whatever. Like before then, I mean, I was lucky to get 1,000 views on a meme. This was the first time a post of mine, went sort of viral in that niche, in the MMA niche. Was posting a meme of like Adesanya hitting the bench saying, Pov, you just saw Dan Hooker's out. Yeah, I was super bummed about that fight. Dan Hooker and Justin Gaethje. So Dan Hooker's been out due to injury all year and now faces a tough matchup against Arman Tsarukyan. Like, no one's been wanting to fight Arman, so full credit to Dan Hooker for wanting to fight Arman Tsarukyan. A tough matchup because the clear path to victory for Arman Tsarukyan is to take Dan Hooker down and submit him, or control him down there and just ground and pound him. Clear path to victory. And Dan Hooker's a big outsider, but he's a big boy. He's a big lightweight, and he's real long arms, real bladey. I mean, I can see him landing some nasty elbows in this fight. And I'm backing Dan Hooker in this fight. I'm going to back the Anzac, the New Zealand brother. And he's paying some juicy odds. So I'm going again with the underdog in the main event. I think Arman will win, logically and with my head. But, I got to support the Anzac. City Kickboxing. Dan Hooker, his path to victory would have to be make this fight dirty, get it real dirty. 5 rounds. I can't remember the last time Arman Tsarukyan went 5 rounds, because his last fight was 3 rounds against Charles Oliveira. And then Beneil Dariush cleaned up in the first minute of round 1. He went, and then, so I don't think he's ever gone 5 rounds before Arman Tsarukyan. So I'm keen to see if Dan Hooker can, make this like his fight with Dustin Poirier. Make it real dirty. Keep it on the feet if possible. I want to see Arman Tsarukyan really test it. I want to see him make it into the 4th round, see how he looks. Like, how is his body coming into this, after that back injury? How's Dan Hooker going to come into this? I mean, it's great of UFC to sign a guy who holds those 1-minute scrap fights. If you haven't seen him, Dan Hooker, 1-minute scraps. So I wonder if Dan Hooker's going to, just come out there and treat it like a 1-minute scrap fight and just come guns blazing with some hooks. And so it's going to be entertaining matchup stylistically. Keen to seeing what answers we're going to get from this out of Arman Tsarukyan. Big question is, has his inactivity going to cost him in this fight for Arman Tsarukyan? And is he going to get ambushed by Dan Hooker? And because Dan Hooker's a tough bloke, very tough. Dustin Poirier, Dan Hooker, one of my favorite fights of all time. I mean, CTE undefeated in that, but I'm going Dan Hooker just for, biasy reasons. But I think Arman Tsarukyan can get him down there and submit him like Islam did. But Dan Hooker, a lot more experienced. He's kind of seen everything in this game, very durable. But just coming off those injuries and surgeries, how's his fitness going to hold up? But I think Arman, he might be in for a tough night. We'll see. Let me know your thoughts on this main event. Because I should be way more excited for this. But again, MMA fatigue from last week, from the weekend, is, there's still a lot to get through. We're going to get to the rankings. It's just, 42, 44 events a year of UFC, too much of anything isn't good. But Bilal Muhammad versus Ian Machado Gary, another big fight for the division. A lot of movement will happen after this fight, and I'm really looking forward to this. This is what's good about this main and co-main event. There's stakes at hand. There's title aspirations at hand, because if Dan Hooker wins this fight, he might just jump the queue for a title shot. And if Ian Gary wins this fight, being the ranked number 7 now, he could very much skip the lot by beating ranked number 2 guy Bilal to a title shot. But we'll get into that. This is a 3-round fight. I wish this was a 5-rounder, to be honest. But Ian Gary's going to win this via decision very convincingly. And in his talks with MMA Junkie, he says if this fight keeps staying on the feet in round 1, he's going to knock out Bilal Muhammad. And Bilal Muhammad, like this guy, man. This guy, let's have a look at his record, but we can know for sure, bet your house on Bilal Muhammad is not knocking out Ian Gary. Like, he's 24-4, and out of, 28 fights, he's got 5 wins via TKO, or knockout TKO. I don't think he's flatlined anyone before. His most recent TKO win was against Sean Brady, and that was standing TKO. Didn't even get him to the ground. So we know for sure Bilal ain't knocking out Ian Gary. He's got 18 wins via decision, so that's why he gets a lot of flack. He gets called the decisionator. He's got 1 win via submission, so he's only got 6 finishes in his whole entire career. And in the UFC, he's got 2 finishes in the UFC. So 2 finishes, no, 3, as I keep going down. 3 finishes in the UFC. So Bilal via decision, you can bet your house on it. But yeah, 18 wins via decision. Ian Gary's going to win this. And Bilal's 37 now. I don't think his age has been talked about enough. 37 years old. A lot of octagon time because of those decisions. Someone at a Q&A said to him, oh, you'd lose a street fight via decision. Like, Bilal is probably the only guy in the UFC that would lose a street fight via decision. That's the running joke with him, and obviously remember the name. But I got to give Bilal credit, man, for that JDM fight, for standing there and taking punches, showing how tough he really is, because he made that fight entertaining. Like, he could have just grappled a lot more. He talks about these Canelo hands. I believe he broke his orbital bone or something. So coming off that brutal, damaging loss to JDM, how's his body holding up coming into this? And being 37 years old now at welterweight, Ian Gary's 28, coming into his prime, the taller guy by like 3 inches, 4 inches. I think it's going to be a tough night for Bilal. He could very much go in there and shock us and press Ian Gary up against the cage for 3 rounds and win by decision. But Ian Gary, whether you love him or hate him, whether he rubs you the wrong way, if he's too cringe for you, you got to respect his fighting skills. I put that all aside for this, and he is a really good fighter, Ian Gary. High fight IQ. That fight with Shavkat Rakhmonov, that was his first career loss against Shavkat. And he did well in that fight. He lost via decision, and he defended a lot of takedowns, and it was short notice as well. He stepped on short notice for Bilal because it was supposed to be Shavkat versus Bilal in that fight. But Ian Gary pulls up, and then his win over Carlos Prates as well. Other than the 5th round, he was pretty much dominating Prates. So he's a really smart and good fighter. And I think people sort of get lost in the, I hate by hating him too much for outside of the cage reasons, for whatever. But inside the cage, you got to respect his fighting. He knows how to win. He's 15-1. And his first career, 16-1, and his first career loss only happened last year against an 18-0 Shavkat, or 19-0 Shavkat Rakhmonov. So yeah, I got Ian Gary convincingly in this fight. He's paying $1.42 and Bilal $2.90. So Ian Gary, they're still giving a bit of respect to Bilal, but I think he should be like $3.50, not $2.90. So yeah, not much else to break down. It's only 3 rounds as well, so it's going to be an absolute sprinter for these guys. But Ian Gary's got this, and the rest of the card, There's a lot of unknowns in this. Volkan Oezdemir versus Alonzo Menafield. Those guys are ranked fighters. I got Volkan winning that fight. Jack Hermansson is dropping down from welterweight. He's coming off that brutal knockout against RoboCop that sent him flying down a weight class. And he takes on Miktabek Orabai, who's been having weight issues at lightweight, so he's going to welterweight. Orabai's a favorite, but Hermansson, he's a crafty vet. He could very much get this win. I'm gonna go Jack Hermansson because he's got that dominant decision win over a guy like Joe Pyfer. Like, he's been fighting big guys. It just depends how we can handle this weight cut, essentially. Sergey Spivak versus Shamil the Goat Gaziv. I'm gonna go Spivak in this. I think he might get Shamil down and submit him, because Shamil lost to Rosenstrike by decision, who is now cut from the UFC. So let's go Spivak in this. Next, then we start to get to this Eurasia. It's very much a Eurasia type of card. And it's at 4 a.m. Australian time. Main card starts at 4 a.m. So I'm only getting up for the co-main onwards. Because those are the fights I'm interested in. I assume the casual fan base, that's what's really at stake in this card, are those two fights. The rest are just, fights to put on a show. But this card is built around this main and co-main. Then we got this Abdul Rahman versus Rafael Casera. And this Abdul guy is coming from the Dana White Contender Series. He is a massive favorite on this card. The biggest favorite on this card, making his UFC debut, paying $1.08. Rafael's paying like $8, $9. I mean, I might have a cheeky bet on the underdog here, just because of the unknowns. When you see a fighter paying that much, I always just have something sneaky on it. But he'll probably get rolled over in the first round. Some guy at Khabib's gym, Tagir Ulanbekov, 17-2 versus Haraguchi. He's a big flyweight, this Dagestanian Ulanbekov. He's coming off that win over Azat Maxim. But yeah, again, as we get down this card, just a lot of people from that Eurasia region. So a lot of those people will be real keen on this fight, seeing people from their region fight during their local time. So yeah, it just sucks. This is, we've got a New Zealander headlining it, and its main event time will be like 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. New Zealand time, it'll be 8:30 a.m., 9 a.m. main event time there. So at least we get this card over and done with on a Sunday early on. And yeah, Nicholas Dolby, he's on this card. I believe he's coming off that loss to Randy Brown in that epic 3-round fight of the night. That was a fun fight. Surprised he's been shoved on the prelims here, but yeah, UFC Qatar, just a lot of sort of newbies on this. But the main and co-main event are great. Let me know your thoughts on this card. We got Ilia Toporia's brother, Alexandre Topuria, returning. Man, he's only 6-1. He doesn't have many MMA fights under his belt for a 29-year-old. He's coming off that win against Kobe Thickness in Sydney earlier this year. Kobe Thickness stepped in on 2 weeks' notice. I believe he was originally supposed to fight Cody Haddon. Man, Cody Haddon, man. This guy's very unfortunate. He's supposed to fight Malcolm Wellmaker on the weekend as well, and then pulled out due to a broken foot. Tough scenes. So Topuria, I'll see how he goes. And it's going to be interesting because I've heard Ilia Topuria, Paddy Pimblett are going to be at this fight. Because, talks about them fighting. But yeah, UFC Qatar, that's it for me. I'm not too interested with any of the other matchups like Asu Amirbayev, Alex Perez. That'll be fun. I got Amirbayev. But yeah, Dan Hooker for the win, Ian Gary for the win. And let's get into some rankings update. The welterweight division has been shook up, and it's going to be even more shook up after this Bilal-Gary fight. But firstly, pound for pound, Islam Makhachev is now number 1. He takes over Ilia Topuria. I mean, you probably could have just kept Islam there when Topuria became 2 division, but I think it's good to give, fighters flowers, like when they do win, and appreciate them, even though pound for pound is also a subjective opinion. So Makhachev vs Topuria, for the pound for pound number 1 spot, will we see it? I don't think we will. I don't think Islam's moving back down to 155. No way. JDM drops 1 spot down to 9th. Tom Aspinall goes up. But this welterweight division, JDM drops 1 spot to now number 1. Bilal now number 2. Michael Morales, number 3, drops 5 spots from rank number 8. So Morales is now ranked 3. Shavkat, now number 4. Like, this guy used to be ranked number 1. Now he's number 4. And then number 5 is Carlos Prates. He jumps 4 spots. And now Ian Gary ranked number 6. So a win over Bilal Muhammad. He'll be ranked number 2. So he could get the title shot next. He will be the highest ranked guy outside of JDM, who hasn't fought for the title or the champion, who was just a champ. So Sean Brady jumps 5 spots to rank number 7. He took that super tough fight, which had no ranking stakes for him, only for him to lose, and that's what's happened. Kamaru Usman drops 3 spots to rank number 8. And let's get into this, because Islam's calling for Kamaru Usman, managed by the same guy, Ali Abdelaziz. Kamaru Usman ranked number 8. Would you give him a title shot? Does he deserve the title shot? Should a ranked 8 guy deserve a title shot? I'm trying to think back to the last guy that was ranked number 8 that got a title shot, and I believe it was Khalil Roundtree. I think he was ranked 7 or 8 when he got that title shot against Alex Pereira. And I don't think you can give Kamaru Usman a title shot by being ranked number 8 when you got a guy like Morales and possibly Ian Gary, soon to be, ranked number 2 and 3, who have been active in this division, because Kamaru Usman has won 1 fight in the past 4 years. 1 fight in the past 4 years. And his last win was against Joaquin Buckley, who's ranked number 10 now. So, obviously, we know who Kamaru Usman is. He had 5 consecutive title defenses, one of the craziest streaks in the welterweight division and win streaks in UFC history. But in the past 4 years, he's won 1 fight. He was on a 3-fight losing streak. And meritocracy speaking, he doesn't get it. But what makes me think he might get it, because the UFC is prize fight. It's not meritocracy. Rankings is just a bit of a guideline. Dana White went on his podcast. I don't even think they've released it. But on their pound for pound channel, they released a little walkthrough of his wardrobe. And they had behind the scenes of their podcast. And Dana White called Kamaru Usman the greatest welterweight of all time. Dana White called Kamaru Usman the greatest welterweight of all time. I don't know if Dana's heard of a guy or knows a guy called George St. Pierre. I'm not sure if he knows that he used to fight in UFC, kind of from 2003 to 2015. around that era of time. He won a belt. I think he's got the most title defenses in welterweight history. He's also a 2-division champ. He fought Michael Bisping at MSG and won the middleweight belt. I don't know if Dana White's heard of this guy called George St. Pierre, aka GSP, aka top 3 fighters of all time. I don't know if Dana's heard of him, but he seems to think Kamaru Usman is the greatest welterweight of all time. I think he must have had that Men in Black just memory eraser on him about GSP. So it has me thinking that he is trying to set up this Islam versus Kamaru Usman, because we know Kamaru Usman, the resume he has, but currently activity-wise, bloke's won 1 fight in the past 4 years. He's coming off and he was on a 3-fight losing streak and lost back-to-back times to Leon Edwards, who we can see now is unfortunately on a bit of a fall. So let me know your thoughts on Kamaru Usman getting Islam next in this stacked welterweight division. We haven't seen this welterweight division stacked like this in a long time. In a very long time. It's probably the most currently, the most stacked division in UFC right now is the welterweight division. Lightweight's always going to be there, but welterweight right now, the top 10, everyone was calling for a title shot. And now it's everyone in that top 6 is calling for a title shot. So this could possibly be, us pundits or whatever, people talk UFC, we come up with some diabolical takes, sometimes a bit of theater, but we can come up with some takes that just aged like rotten milk. But for the promoter, the president of the UFC, who's started this, being one of the best promoters of all time, to have come up with possibly one of the worst takes of all time in history with this Kamaru Usman is the greatest welterweight of all time. And that just cemented Dana White into next level mayo man. The amount of mayo he has put on this take, you could fill a fucking Roman bathtub full of mayo, the amount of on this. Dana Mayo Man White. That is a Mayo Man take right there. And, is what it is. But yeah, I just thought it was super funny to just completely shut out a guy called George St. Pierre, calling Kamaru the GOAT. And it was just typical promoter talk. So I don't, it is what it is. But let me know your thoughts on this Dana White take, if it's probably one of the worst takes of all time. Because I say it is. And so yeah, rankings wise, we just went through. In the women's division, Zhang Wei Li in the strawweight division, where she was champ, is now ranked number 2. Above her is Tatiana Suarez. I believe she should still be ranked number 1 because she'll move down and get the title. Kayla Harrison moves up 1 spot in the pound for pound list, ranked number 2. Valentina obviously still pound for pound. And newly ranked Fatima Klein in the strawweight division. Welcome to the rankings, Fatima Klein, with that win over Angela Hill. I think she'll be future strawweight champ in a few years. And newly ranked Greg Rodriguez in the middleweight division. But yeah, that's about it. That's about it, guys. UFC Qatar, and Dana White went on Andrew Schultz's podcast, Flagrant, and talked about a story with Francis Ngannou. Says to him before the Stipe Miocic fight, the first one, "Hey, after this fight, you're booking me a private jet back to Paris." Dana White laughed it off, and Francis grabs him and says, "I'm not joking." Goes out there, gets mauled for 5 rounds. And then there was another time he was complaining about not getting a bonus. Dana White explains why in his office at the PI. and says Francis, Dana went to leave and Francis, grabbed him by the shirt and said, "You ain't leaving." And then another time with Hunter Campbell, complaining to him about something, grabs him by the back of the collar and drags him back in. So I don't know if this is also a lot of mayo in this story. So I'll be interested to hear what Francis says. But boy, Francis Ngannou, if this is true, man, this guy ain't playing around. Imagine just grabbing your boss by the collar and going, "Oh, you give me fucking 50K or I'll fucking deck you." Yeah, let me know your thoughts on this. That's just come out today, Dana White. And this is the first time he's told this story because we know his beef with Francis and he's touched on the private jet thing before, but not in that heavy detail going in. But Francis, I was looking at some comments about this. People were saying good on him because, the UFC aren't paying the fighters enough or whatever, but it's probably a better way to go about it than that. Grabbing the president and the boss of the company you fight for. But hey, the fighters are considered contractors. They're not employees. They're considered contractors under the agreements. So technically he's not his boss. They treat him like employees. And Francis, has spoken out about that. A lot of people have had class action lawsuit payouts, hundreds of millions. They have to wear uniforms, all this and that. And Francis treated it like a partnership. Got a little bit handsy by the sounds of it. He didn't treat him like his boss if he were his boss. He treated him like, another, contractor, doing business with. Fucking grabbed him by the shirt by the sounds of it. Dana said, "Get your fucking hands off me." I mean, imagine fucking Francis just fucking picked him up and dropped him or just fucking cracked him with a left hook. But boy, I would have been pretty scared if Francis grabbed me by the shirt and going, "You ain't leaving, brother." So, man, interesting for Dana to talk about that today. I wonder if he's trying to build up something for the White House. Get Francis talking, get him to come out and go, "Hey, well, how about you come back and fight Tom Aspinall or Cyril Gahn or John Jones," So there's always read between the lines with when Dana White, he just like the Kamaru Usman thing, read between the lines. Why would he say such a thing? And I think he's trying to set some shit up down the line. But let me know your thoughts, guys. UFC Qatar, the rankings, Kamaru Usman title shot, JDM, we still haven't heard anything. Appreciate the support over the weeks, over the year. I mean, my first ever episode talking about fights was when JDM won the fight early this year. Because I just had to talk about it. I was so amazed. I was so happy. It was an audio cast. So yeah, it's been, so far this year, been a fun journey getting into talking about doing these episodes off the cuff, talking into a phone camera. But yeah, I haven't been doing this for that long, but we've been consistent every single event, preview, review. We started off with JDM versus Bilal, and now and it was a full circle moment last week because, yeah, the JDM versus Islam and was, still chipping away at it. We're at like 130 something subscribers, slowly building, but I think that's the best way, guys, to do anything. If you're just doing it for the views and clicks and trying to build quick and try and just go viral or build something quick, it's not I don't think it lasts long. I watched a YouTube video last night about these, the 15 minutes of fame, people that just went viral and now are just come crashing down because they just, the hot tour girl, the backpack kid doing the floss dance, the island boys, just going super viral and famous and then trying to monetize it. But it's never really sustainable because, you haven't got any great foundations. So that's, why I keep turning up and just truly like doing it. And, I might get 5 views, no views or whatever. But I think with anything, if you're watching this, you got to build those strong foundations. Like when you build a house, you got to get those concrete slabs poured in. You got to get the steel frame. You got to build those solid foundations if you want to be sustainable for the future and keep being able to do what you want to do, instead of like, because I keep it real on here. Sometimes we get a bit of theatre going, a bit of mayo or whatever for entertainment purposes, but if you don't keep it real, it's not sustainable. So yeah, appreciate so far doing this and throughout the year. You know, I think a lot of people might have given up, because if I'd have given up, would have been doing it for the wrong reasons. Doing this YouTube channel and the social media, it's just a fun way to engage in the sport, because I'm not able to physically do it, unfortunately. I can get into that later down the track as to why, but because I'd be doing this anyway, watching the UFC. So jumping on here, guys, it's good fun. Appreciate the support. You know, if you're not going to give thanks to your subscribers now at this point, 136 odd, it's very important to. So thank you, guys. And because when it gets to 1,000, 10,000, 500,000, or 1,000,000, you got to remember where you started from. And I think that's the best way to go about anything. Be humble. Remember why you're doing it, and appreciate the day ones. So thank you, guys. You guys are the day ones currently. So yeah, we're going to keep building, see how we go. Currently rambling, but yeah, we've got 3 events to go this year, and then we'll get like a month off. And during that time, I'm sure we'll be going, oh, I wish there was some UFC on. But yeah, UFC Qatar, go watch the reactions I've put out. Go follow the Insta, the TikTok. Let me know what else you want to see. But yeah, appreciate the support. And yeah, we'll see you in the review. Catch you later, guys.